There's no other way to say it. The war with Iran intensifies. Iran shoots down an F-15 fighter jet. U.S. rescue operations continue. Ceasefire talks stall. Iranian missiles and drones inflict damage region-wide. In the aftermath of Attorney General Pam Bondi's firing, what is next for the Justice Department, the Epstein files, and foundering high-profile political prosecutions? We ask Jamie Raskin, top Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee. The pictures from Artemis II, breathtaking. The crew is well and heading toward a historic trip around the far side of the moon. Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Welcome to the Takeout. The Iran war commands our attention, and not just ours. Senior administration officials tell us President Trump's national security team has been with him at the White House. A fair amount of this day is with him now. The president's been monitoring the situation all day long, and here's why. Iranian forces shot down a U.S. F-15E fighter jet today. U.S. forces rescued one of the two members of that crew. The search continues for the second member of that crew. Details are somewhat limited on the location and the means of these rescue missions. Also, one person died and 4 were injured when debris from an intercepted Iranian missile landed at a natural gas facility in Abu Dhabi. 2 fires at the facility have been contained, but significant damage was inflicted. Iran said it rejected a 48-hour ceasefire proposal that came from the U.S. Now, that report was produced by the Iranian media, so we will take it with a grain of salt. The Wall Street Journal reported that efforts to end the war through mediation in Pakistan or through the cooperation of other regional countries have hit a dead end. Kuwait sustained damage from Iranian attacks on an oil refinery and a desalination plant. Several blazes were being fought at that refinery, and the desalination plant, we are told, suffered material damage. Don't know how much, but it was described as material damage. Also, sirens warning of missiles or drones sounded in Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and Israel. The Strait of Hormuz remains effectively closed with Iran. We're going to start tonight with Maryland Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin. He is the ranking member on the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman, you heard me summarize what has been a very busy day in the region. Your reaction?
Well, it's a nightmare, obviously, that one of our planes was shot down, and we can only pray and hope for the missing servicemen. But, you know, this underscores the importance of our working with whatever other countries are willing to help to try to put an end to this quickly. It's a lot easier to get into these wars in the Middle East than it is to get out of them. And that underscores the fundamental importance of following our Constitution, which requires Congress to declare war. It is not up to the president or the vice president or Tulsi Gabbard or anybody else in the executive branch. It's up to the representatives of the people, and we skipped over that step. The framers were intent that both the House and the Senate be involved to try to consider all of the many implications of war for the country. And so I certainly hope that we can find a way out of this. The president has declared the war over numerous times and has said it was a success and so on. And yet the death count continues to go up every day.
The president said in his primetime address earlier this week, Congressman, I know you know this, but I want to remind the audience that the skies above Iran were effectively in possession of the United States and Israel. The downing of an F-15 is no small matter. That suggests otherwise.
Well, right. That would seem to be proof that there's not complete domination of the skies. In any event, dominating the air does not translate into regime change, and it does not translate into control on the ground. And any military historian or strategist, will explain that. It's not a complicated idea. You essentially can't bomb your way to victory. And I think that's why the president has been talking about sending over troops, but there's just not the support in the country for it. Congress never voted for this. We never went through a process of discussing what the reasons for the war are. And President Trump never identified the rationale for the war or the purpose and objectives of the war. And so there's just great uncertainty in terms of what exactly is happening and when and how the U.S. can get out.
The president today sent to Congress a budget request, $1.5 trillion for the Defense Department, a massive increase. How do you believe congressional Democrats and even congressional Republicans will respond?
Well, that's staggering. And, given what's taking place with the war in Iran, which again is unauthorized and undeclared, it raises a whole host of questions as to what the president's plans are. So I think that we're going to need to return to constitutional government, both in terms of congressional exercise of the war powers and in terms of congressional control over the purse. But a $1.5 trillion budget busting defense request is going to raise eyebrows all across Capitol Hill on both sides of the aisle and in both chambers.
What do you believe is the short-term future of the Justice Department, Congressman Raskin, now that Pam Bondi, the former Attorney General, has been fired?
Well, Bondi leaves the department in a state of complete wreckage. Thousands of DOJ employees were fired or quit because of the reign of lawlessness and corruption that she inaugurated there. Many of the very best prosecutors were ousted because they had worked on the January 6th case, which is the largest criminal case in American history. Whoever comes in should go back and rehire those people. They were fired for no other reason that they worked on a case that they were assigned to. That's hundreds and hundreds of lawyers. And at the very least, the senator should be asking whether that would be on the agenda there. And at the same time, the Attorney General Bondi was involved centrally in a complete cover-up and blockade of information that was supposed to be released under the Epstein Files Transparency Act. That federal enactment requires the Department of Justice to turn over the entire file except for the redaction of victims' names. They failed to redact the victims' names, but they redacted a lot of names of conspirators and enablers and accomplices to the different crimes and withheld 3 million out of 6 million documents. So that's just an appalling performance. They say that Donald Trump is firing her because of the Epstein files, but what he means is that she let too much go and did not succeed in completely vanquishing this as an issue. Now, that's not her fault. The public wants to see the release, the complete disclosure of the Epstein files, and people want the truth to come out. So I think Trump would like to make her a fall guy in some sense, but nobody could have done a better job, and nobody will do a better job until they actually release the Epstein files and let the whole truth come out to the public.
Related to that, Congressman Raskin, the House Oversight Committee, as you well know, has subpoenaed Pam Bondi to appear April 14th. There may be some effort by the White House to say, well, she's no longer Attorney General, she's got nothing important to say, and have her evade that subpoena. Do you believe Congress can enforce that subpoena regardless of her position in the private sector after leaving the Justice Department?
Well, there's no doubt that Congress can enforce that subpoena. The question is whether James Comer, in his inimitable wisdom, will want to. It looked like they were already trying to wiggle out of that subpoena appearance under oath when they brought her in for a roundtable discussion with 3-minute questions from the members of the Oversight Committee. And the only question that my colleagues on Oversight wanted to ask was, are you planning to come still to your subpoenaed deposition under oath before the committee? And she refused to answer directly in her way, simply saying that she would follow the law. So it looked like they were trying to find a way out. even while she was still Attorney General. And I think her not being Attorney General, they will definitely try not to send her there. But ironically, she may be in less of a position to resist being a private citizen. Now she clearly has the time to do it, and she's going to have to worry about violating a subpoena of the House Oversight Committee and Congress. The question is whether Comer will stand by it. Nancy Mace, who is the author of the subpoena motion, has said she's standing by it, and we'll see if she can get enough other Republicans on oversight to stand by it and on the House floor. So that, I think the wheel is still very much in spin in terms of what's going to happen there with that April 14th appearance.
The wheel very much in spin. That is not just a metaphor for that particular story, but for many stories in Washington this day. The ranking Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee, Jamie Raskin, starting us off tonight. I appreciate it very much. Thank you. We turn now to the White House. Nancy Cordes on the North Lawn. Nancy, as I mentioned at the top of the show, President's national security team there. We've been told, you've been told by senior administration officials, he has been monitoring activity in the region, Middle East, all day long. What do we know?
That's about all we know, Major. We haven't gotten any kind of public statement from the White House or the president himself about this F-15, about the two airmen who were on board, about the fate of the second airman, or any rescue operations. Mum is really the word here at the White House. We do know that the president's national security team is assembled, but we haven't been told whether the president has been meeting with them in the Situation Room, how often he's been briefed. We just have been told that he's been briefed and that he's been working in the Oval Office all day. The president has posted a couple of times today, but not about the F-15. He's mostly been posting about Iranian oil. In one cryptic message, he said in just a four-word post, basically, does anyone want the oil? With a question mark. Wasn't quite clear what he was referring to, but he has been talking for weeks and really for years about his interest in obtaining Iranian oil, taking Iranian oil, as he puts it. And earlier this week, he said that stupid people, in his words, not mine, were trying to talk him out of it.
And Nancy, the president has said several times that the United States and the Israeli Air Force own the skies over Iran, quite separate from the abilities, the mission, the capabilities of the F-15E fighter pilot. They were shot down. That's not an aspersion on their technical military capability, but it does suggest the Iranians have an answer at least once, maybe more, and maybe the skies aren't under as much control of the Israeli and American Air Force as the president has many times suggested.
Yes, not just the president, but the defense secretary as well. They have both insisted for weeks that the U.S. has near total air superiority over Iran, that their Air Force has been decimated, that their, as the president has put it, their anti-aircraft equipment has been completely destroyed. Even as recently as this past Wednesday, in his address to the nation, Major, he said that Iran's ability to launch missiles and drones has been dramatically curtailed. Apparently, however, it hasn't been entirely curtailed. We still don't know a lot of the details surrounding the downing of this F-15, but it does seem that Iran does retain at least some of its anti-aircraft abilities.
Nancy Cordes, North Lawn of the White House. Thank you very, very much. Eleanor Watson, who covers the Pentagon for CBS, joins me now. Eleanor, great to have you with us. Nancy referred to this. We know a few details about the F-15E and the rescue. Tell us what we know.
Right now, we know that search and rescue is ongoing for the second crew member of that F-15E. Because it's an F-15E, there are two service members on the plane. The first was rescued, we're told, by U.S. forces, and the rescue for the second is underway. In all of this, there have been additional aircraft that have taken hits. An A-10 Warthog took a hit. The pilot safely ejected over the Persian Gulf. Two helicopters that were rescuing the first service member out of Iran were targeted with small arms fire. One of the helicopters was hit, but both helicopters safely landed, and the crew members are safe. All of this goes to what Nancy was talking about with the air superiority. There have been more than 12,000 combat flights over Iran. And so while the Pentagon and the White House have insisted that They have control of the skies. Iran's still going to try and get a few shots off, and in this case, did successfully shoot down Air Force fighter jet.
What do we know about the F-15 itself, the platform? What kind of maneuvers, what kind of missions does it typically carry out?
Well, this F-15 was likely dropping bombs within Iran. Because of that air superiority, the Pentagon has shifted towards standoff weapons to going and overflying targets. Where this aircraft was downed was southwest Iran, which the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff has said, southern Iran, they're getting more and more control of that airspace. But clearly, this fighter jet was targeted. We had some indications there were still risks there a few weeks ago when we reported that an F-35 was also hit by Iran. That aircraft, fortunately, was hit, but safely landed at a regional airbase nearby. The F-15E is a larger fighter jet than some of the other fighter jets we see, but they would have been trained in evading, and we should note, would be trained in evading capture once they ejected as well.
It's worth underscoring, Eleanor, that rescue operations are frequently hairy. This one clearly was. An A-10 Warhog is a very serious aircraft. It can fire suppressive fire in very high quantities that's very lethal and still took hits. So this was an engaged situation with risks.
That's right. And really, we should impress upon our audience that in war, there are risks, no matter
Always.
what is coming from officials about how decimated the Air Force or Navy are. The A-10, we should note, is a close air support aircraft. So the A-10, in this instance, we're not sure what it was involved in, but the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff has said there have been A-10s trying to knock down some of the risks along the southern coast of Iran, close in there, so that that Strait of Hormuz can open back up.
Excellent. Eleanor Watson, with all of the details, I appreciate it very, very much. Still to come on the Takeout, the mission around the moon. We check in on the Artemis II crew and the amazing, amazing pictures they are sharing with all of us. Plus, a new round of firings at the Pentagon. Eleanor Watson, I'm happy to say, will be staying with me to talk about what's behind, if we know it, top military leaders being ousted at the word and direction, singularly, of the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth. Plus, Maryland Governor Wes Moore criticizes the war in Iran in an interview with my colleague Ed O'Keefe. More on that when we come back. The Takeout returns in 90 seconds. This is Artemis II time, and I remain transfixed by this story. Thanks to Artemis II and its crew, we are already getting to see, there you see one of them right there, stunning brand new images from their voyage. NASA released these photos of Earth alongside a video update from on board the spacecraft. Here's NASA astronaut Christina Cook.
There's nothing that prepares you for the breathtaking aspect of seeing your home planet both lit up bright as day and also the moon glow on it at night with a beautiful beam of the sunset, and knowing that we're going to get similar views of the moon. I'm really excited for that.
As are we all. Senior national correspondent for CBS News, Mark Strassman, joins me now from Johnson Space Center in Houston. Mark, catch us up on what we've learned today.
Was transfixing, wasn't it, Major? I mean, those pictures are just stunning. And remember that human eyes haven't had that perspective in more than a half century now. If you think about that one picture of the entire Earth, that one, it's like a group shot of all of us,
right.
Except for the 4 people who are now making their way to the moon, right? I mean, there's leaving humanity behind.
I didn't have my smile going. I should work on that next time.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. And so, look, it's been another great day where this is officially the 3rd day now of this mission, and the crew got up a couple hours ago and are doing their thing. There's sort of a series of, more minor systems checks that they have to go through today, the medical kit and the pressurized suits and so on. But the big objective, obviously, is coming in the days ahead when they finally do get to the moon. And I asked NASA today again to sort of explain to folks who just started following this moonshot. I mean, why are we going back anyway?
I want to just sort of scoot ahead to Monday's milestone, the lunar flyby. Why does it matter? What do you hope to get out of it?
So it matters because, the whole point is to go back to the moon. The whole point of this mission is a campaign to get back to the moon. And the being able to see with human eyes the lunar surface is a huge milestone, right? And that just articulates the point, that we're going back to the moon. We're going to stay there.
Major, I read an interesting little fun fact this week that 3 of the 4 people on planet Earth alive today were born after the last Apollo mission. That was Apollo 17 in 1972. So for all of those folks, for the vast majority of the planet, this is a new experience. This isn't just nostalgia anymore. This is something brand new. And so for all of those folks who see images like this for the first time, probably just as transfixed, to use your word, as you have been by those pictures and by this mission. I mean, just think of the images that we're going to see in the coming days.
Mark Strassman, appreciate it very much, sir. Good to have you with us. Retired NASA astronaut Bonnie Dunbar joins me now. She took part in 5 space flights and spent more than 50 days in space. It's great to have you with us. I know that for anyone attached to a mission, you're very focused on your mission. But I wonder, is there any small part of you that is envious of the 4 who are up there right now and what they're seeing?
Oh, absolutely. I became enamored with space when I was very young, probably about 9 years old. And then so I remember when Sputnik went over. I remember I was a sophomore in engineering when we went around the moon the first time, Apollo 8, very much like this. And then remember when we landed on the moon in 1969. But I was really motivated as a young girl to want to go to Mars. So I may not make it there, but I hope in my lifetime I see that we have humans exploring that far.
And we've gone over this a couple of times this week, Bonnie, but I think it's always worth repeating why the moon and creating a base of operations on the moon is vital to any aspirations we may have about getting to Mars.
Well, we're actually very fortunate that we have a moon so close to us that provides us an opportunity for operations and extreme environments to go back and forth to before we try something like Mars, which might be a 3-year mission. And I sort of look at it as early exploration. When my grandparents immigrated here from Scotland, we had not even been to Antarctica yet. We gradually got there, and now we've got, more than, I think, almost 30 nations with research bases there. But the moon may be, 3.5, 4, 5 days away. We can get back and forth to that. We need to learn how to work in a reduced gravity environment. We're 1G here on the Earth. The moon is 1/6, and Mars is 3/8, and that affects our design of our systems, our human body, all that. So it's a great research base. And the South Pole is important because we have sunlight most of the time, and we think we have water ice in the deep craters there. So it's the ideal location.
And for the crew members aboard Artemis II right now, they are preparing for this amazing trip around the far side of the moon. All due respect to Pink Floyd, it's not the dark side of the moon, it's the far side of the moon. What's it like the in-between now as they make their way there?
Well, they're very busy. Part of this mission is to check out the vehicle, life support systems, and navigation. They're going to have new communications on board as well. But also, we want to understand the radiation environment. Once you leave the protective environment of the Earth's poles, electromagnetic shield, you get into deep space. You have galactic cosmic rays. There's going to be instruments looking at that. We actually have an experiment on there looking at cells as well. Actually, it's kind of a human on a chip type of thing, looking at some exercise equipment that we had to reduce in both mass and volume and still keep the crew healthy. So there'll be a lot of experiments that they're conducting all the way around. And on the back side of the moon, not the dark, they will actually be taking some photography that we need for future exploration.
And that photography will be the first of its kind. I mean, you've got to be anticipating that as much as anyone.
Yeah, we had some, of course, from our other 6 missions. Actually, that's 8 if you count Apollo 8 and Apollo 13. But these are new locations, and lighting is going to be important as well. So the planetary geologists are quite excited about this.
Because of what they'll be able to see that they haven't possibly seen before, right?
Right, and also for mapping for future exploration. One of the discussions we've had about future bases on the moon is, can we take advantage of lava tubes, for example? Where are they located? Because they would shield us from the radiation. And so it's a matter of mapping it, not just for geology, but also for human operations.
And will we learn very much, Bonnie, from this mission about the next step, which is to go around the moon closer and then contemplate landing there? Are there parts of this exercise over the next 3 or 4 days that are going to inform us about that next big step?
Every part of it. New vehicle, both the habitat, the launch vehicle, communications, every life support systems. It's not easy keeping people alive and working these systems in a weightless environment. I was a bit amused about the comment about the toilet. Every mission, including the first shuttle mission, STS-1, has always had a little problems with a new design on life support. And so we need to check out all these systems before we commit to landing, but we're going to try to do that before 2030.
And then we return to the Earth, and Artemis I came in, as I understand it, on a trajectory that was meant to sort of force it into the hottest possible reentry imaginable. This reentry will not be as the same angle in order to reduce some of the friction, but that's still a key part of what we're going to learn about this mission as well.
Yeah, actually, it's a little bit of a different trajectory. It'll still see some of the peak high temperature reentry environments, but it'll be shorter. And so it won't be quite the same duration, and that'll be better on the thermal protection system.
And on the astronauts inside.
Well, fortunately, just like your home has a thermostat, the life support systems will moderate the heat inside. So the objective is not to get that heat that you're seeing outside, that 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, into the inside. They're also going to be wearing pressure suits. They'll have cooling garments underneath that. So the whole life support system, the structure, will protect the crew members.
And that's probably, Bonnie, the next big heart-racing moment for them, that reentry.
Well, I think it's heart racing for all of us, isn't it?
It will be for me, that's for sure.
Yeah, fortunately, we've got something called a free return. So that trajectory and the attitude control system's been working beautifully. We managed that all the way to the moon and come in at the right angle. Then we'll land off the coast of the United States and the Pacific and be recovered by the Navy ships. And it'll be just like Apollo again. Only on steroids, and we've got 4 people, and we're going to be going back to the moon to stay.
Apollo on steroids. When the crew splashes down, I believe it will go to my hometown of San Diego. Bonnie Dunbar, great to have you with us. I appreciate your time very, very much.
Thank you
very much. The Army's top general is out as part of a wider purge of officials, senior officials inside the Pentagon. Up next, we will look at what it might mean for the United States military and the Pentagon itself. More on that when we come back. You're watching The Takeout. Welcome back to The Takeout. Thanks for staying with us. Army Chief of Staff Randy George is not a household name. Fact. But he is known and respected, not only with the United States Army, but across all of our services. He's out of his job as part of the Trump administration purge at the Pentagon, which seems to be gaining momentum, accelerating. George was nominated to the post that he was just ousted from by President Biden in 2023. That position, under normal circumstances, has a 4-year term attached. Sources tell CBS News 2 other Army officers were also removed from their jobs. The total purge on the administration is now numbering more than a dozen high-ranking service members. As I mentioned earlier in the show, Eleanor Watson would come back. She has. I'm so glad you're with us. Describe what's going on, Eleanor.
Well, Randy George yesterday was informed by Secretary Hegseth that he would like for George to immediately retire. There are 2 things at play, according to our sources. One is that Hegseth wanted someone in that spot, the top U.S. Army military officer who aligns with a Hegseth President Trump vision of the military, even though the military has historically been apolitical. That George may not fit that mold in Hegseth's mind because George, as you mentioned, was nominated by President Biden and previously served as the senior military assistant to Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin from 2021 to 2022. We should note, though, that that's not all George did in his career. He's been an Army officer since 1988, having graduated from West Point. He served in the first Gulf War and then later commanded in the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. The second thing at play, we're told, is there is tension between Secretary Hegseth and his own Army Secretary, Dan Driscoll. And the fact that George is close to Driscoll played a part in Hegseth giving George this early retirement, a year early.
It landed almost as an ultimatum.
That's right. And we've seen that before.
Mm-hmm. I want to read to you something that I came across in The Atlantic today from Tom Nichols under the headline, Hegseth's War on America's Military. What I'm about to read is not with the editorial nature of that article, but a fact that I think you would agree with, and I'd like you to evaluate. These officers, meaning all who have been purged under Hegseth's leadership, are all people with long and distinguished records of service. None of them has been charged with any wrongdoing, and none of them has been accused of any kind of incompetence or disloyalty. True?
That's true. We haven't really heard since the early retirements or the firing started last year, haven't really heard many reasons for them, which you would expect to because it ends these, almost 40-year careers. But what I do want to mention is it's not just the people that there have been some against the norms. Just this week, we saw the secretary kind of overrule the Army in an investigation into 2 Apache helicopters flying near Kid Rock's house. The Army initially announced those pilots would be suspended.
Pending an investigation.
Pending an investigation, a formal investigation. Secretary Hegseth, on his personal X account, lifted that suspension, said there will be no investigation. That is usually left up to the services. The second example, it was a few weeks back, but was the promotion list that Secretary Hegseth was personally holding colonels from becoming one-star generals because he didn't want some of the names. He didn't think some of the names on that list deserved that promotion. That is almost unheard of, based on what I've heard from current and former officials, for the secretary to weigh in on a process that the services go through very comprehensively for months, especially to weigh in on a promotion from a colonel to a one-star.
That is a merit-based process, rigorous, and supposed to be immune from politics, so people understand that you can succeed in the military by doing the task, not by saluting in a particularly political way.
And so that you're not tagged with having done something under the previous administration.
Right.
Your work should speak for
Your
itself.
military career speaks for itself,
Exactly.
independent of any administration that comes or goes. Eleanor Watson, as always, thank you very much. Coming up, Ed O'Keefe joins me to discuss his interview today with Maryland Governor Wes Moore. You're watching The Takeout. Welcome back to The Takeout. My esteemed colleague, Ed O'Keefe, who sometimes helpfully anchors this show in my absence, spoke with Maryland Governor Wes Moore because Ed is substitute hosting Face the Nation this Sunday. Here's some of that interview.
We are very dangerously, we're lurching again into another forever war. And this is a forever war that is very similar to the one that I fought in, where I led soldiers with the 82nd Airborne Division in Afghanistan. And I know that the United States was in Afghanistan for 20 years, that it cost this country over $2.5 trillion, that we lost over 2,400 American lives. And we did it because we said we wanted to change the Taliban. Mm-hmm. And 20 years later, you know who's in charge of Afghanistan? The Taliban. And so I feel like we are lurching into another one of these forever wars that we're asking the American people to pay for, but the President of the United States and the Commander-in-Chief has still yet to articulate what exactly it is that we're doing.
As we meet here, there are search and rescue operations underway now inside Iran because a U.S. fighter jet has been shot down. In recent days, the president suggested this operation will be done in 2 to 3 weeks. That doesn't seem to sit with you.
This is sitting horribly with me because I'm thinking about these families. I'm thinking about the families of our service members who right now who are afraid to pick up the phone because they're afraid to hear what is on the other end of the line. That we had a president of the United States talk about the military success that we have seen thus far, while still without acknowledging the fact of the long road ahead, and no one understands or has been articulated to us what exactly it is that we are doing or what success looks like. And so I'm praying for these families, but also what I'm praying for is some clarity from the White House.
CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe joins me now. Well, the governor,
in person,
yes,
not just in your wall.
Exactly. The governor went in a direction that he may find some criticism for.
Yeah.
Already comparing this to Afghanistan. Afghanistan was started under completely different circumstances, 9/11, and the goals there were different, and already describing this as a forever war. I mean, the president went to great pains in his primetime address this week to say it isn't forever, it is of a short duration, it may be a short duration after that.
Right, and he had 32 days the night he spoke, so we're at day 34. About 5 weeks. It is certainly not to that length. But what he's articulating is what many Democrats especially are concerned about, and that is you've launched yet another war. You've given very little clear explanation of what you want to do and what is the end goal. And we know how this can go if it isn't checked at some point soon. What it also starts to do is it now puts governors who may be military veterans but have no practical foreign policy experience otherwise now on the record in these ways, criticizing this. And there were some questions asked, you'll see Sunday, about, well, what would you do, or what should the next president do about Iran and about some other world issues? And you see there some examples of a governor that needs to do a little more thinking on that, because the criticism's one thing. Well, what's the solution? And there is the Democratic problem yet again on all issues. You can criticize the president, but what would you do about it? And the what would you do about it is harder to answer right now.
Always is.
Right.
Ed O'Keefe, appreciate the time very much. You can watch more of Ed's interview with Maryland Democratic Governor Wes Moore this Sunday on Face the Nation, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. We say this a lot. It was a busy week. Pam Bondi out as Attorney General. The war in Iran continues. Supreme Court arguments, new presidential budget sent to Congress, lots of things going on. Our reporter panel will come back and join us. Well, they're not going to come back. They're going to be here for the first time. Pick it all apart when we come back. Welcome back, reporter panel time. Let me introduce them to you. Bloomberg, Washington correspondent, good friend of mine, Jeff Mason, Washington bureau chief for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, also a good friend of me and the show, Tia Mitchell. Great to have you both here. Tia, I always want to talk to you about Georgia politics. Big day on Tuesday, the runoff, and talk to us about the Senate campaign. Jon Ossoff, the sitting Democrat, looking stronger, it seems.
Yeah, there's been a lot of media coverage lately that Ossoff's in a good position for a few reasons. Number one, the Republicans have a contested primary. There is no clear front runner. The candidate on the Republican side who's polling the best is Congressman Mike Collins, but still around 30%. You've got a lot of undecided voters. They're duking it out. They're criticizing each other. And, you know, Republicans say while they're fighting amongst themselves, Jon Ossoff is riding high. He's talking about all the money he's got in appropriations for all these rural counties. He's raising lots of money, more money than any other candidate on the ballot in 2026.
So he's not only focusing on Atlanta and the suburbs, but he's going statewide.
Yes. And, you know, there are places in rural Georgia that he's going to and saying, here's your check because I fought for you and got, you know, appropriations, earmarks in the budget. So, and he doesn't have to put up with, I mean, yes, the Republicans are criticizing him, but they're spending a lot more time criticizing each other. So he's just kind of floating along with no primary.
Jeff, you and I spent a lot of time at the White House. You know this is a heavy week for the president and his administration. Iran is at not a tipping point, but the country is evaluating it. He gave a primetime address on it Wednesday. He spent all day there today. Now there's been a downing of an F-15. That's a significant moment. A lot's going on.
Lots going on, and it was an interesting messaging week for him because he gave that speech on Wednesday after saying in the Oval the day before that he expected to conclude the war within 2 to 3 weeks. I think he wanted to underscore that the next night in the big address and probably try to goose markets a little bit, bring those oil prices down, get the stock market back up where he's happy to see it. And instead, it did the exact opposite because he did what he's done this entire time, which is give contradictory messages. In addition to repeating the 2 to 3 week timeline, he also gave sort of escalatory language by saying, if they don't make a deal, we're going to do this, we're going to do that.
Stone Age references, yeah, pretty intense stuff.
Which is, yeah, I mean, very sharp rhetoric.
So for a while, it appeared that this administration would keep its cabinet together. Most of the conversations I had on the Hill, at the White House, were like, we're going to ride it through. Probably nothing until after the midterms. A, because the president wants cohesion, loyalty, performance, and confirmation problems if we have to replace anyone. Mark Wayne Mullins solved that for DHS, but now Pam Bondi's out. How do you evaluate that, Jeff?
I would say B, to the start of your list. He surrounded himself with complete loyalists in 2.0, which is not what he did entirely in 1.0.
Right.
He learned from that. He changed how he filled his cabinet, but that did not inoculate Pam Bondi, nor did it inoculate Kristi Noem. What I conclude from that is, if there are more, then this is a wave. I think it's also a suggestion or a proof, really, that he's frustrated generally, and he's taken that out on his cabinet, on his allies, on everyone around him.
And Tia, Pam Bondi, if she were sitting here, would probably say, I did all I could on the loyalty front.
Yeah, she's very loyal. I think, to Jeff's point, I think he's looking at the polling numbers. He's getting frustrated that things aren't going his way, and he's willing to take it out on people who maybe are loyal in rhetoric, but he hasn't liked the way their actions have played out in the public. Pam Bondi had that, and Kristi Noem, quite frankly, both did not do well when they had to answer questions from members of Congress. Of course, the release of the Epstein files didn't go well for Pam Bondi, even though, again, I think some of that is because she was trying to do what she thought President Trump wanted her to do. But I think they, have become scapegoats, so to speak, or at least punching bags for his frustration. But it wasn't because they didn't do everything, or at least try to do everything he told them to do.
There is always a celebrity factor around the Trump White House, and it was released today, or earlier this week, rather, Tiger Woods, after his rollover crash. We feel very bad about that. You understand he's going into treatment, sympathetic about that. Had a conversation with those who were talking to him from law enforcement and said the following. Roll that.
Just keep you down here with us, please.
Yeah, I was just talking to the president.
Oh, sure.
I was just talking with the president.
I was just talking with the president. Now, there is a potential familial relationship going on here. He may become part of the larger Trump family. Jeff, you want to pick up the golf ball on this one?
I would just say that's a flex if I've ever seen
one. Boy, is that a flex. And Tiger's got a lot of flexes. It's not like he doesn't need another flex, but that's a flex.
It's a flex. And what he really intended, what message he intended to send with that, I think is debatable. I'm not going to speculate, but I think people can draw their own conclusions.
But as the local authorities would say to you, no one's above the law. He went through the same process as everybody else.
And I'm choosing my words carefully because I don't want to make light of this, but this is not his first.
No, that's why I said we're sympathize. I sympathize, but he's got a pain problem. He's going seeking treatment. I'm sympathetic to all of that.
Yeah, but
still a flex, though.
I say that because perhaps it might have worked if this was his first interaction with law enforcement and say, hey, you know friends in high places, and this is our first time, so maybe we can cut you some slack. But I don't think anyone in law enforcement, because he's a repeat offender, so to speak, I don't think they want that on their shoulders. So there is no slack to be cut for you, Tiger Woods.
Same process for Tiger Woods. And the same process always here. The candy does not eat itself. Grab some on the way out. Jeff Mason to you. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Happy Friday, everyone. Busy, heavy week. This is The Takeout. Relentlessly curious, reliably civil, occasionally clever. Daily Report coming your way next.